Hello everyone and welcome back to one of these interview episodes of the SWW show. I'm Mike, and today with me two guests from, not that far across the world for once. Christian and Stefan are here to talk about Line War. To get us started, guys, how are you doing today on this, I'm assuming, cold and dreary day for you also?
We're fine. We're excited about the release coming up in 2 days.
Yeah, we're talking to you like right before. This has to be like that fun, like either everything's breaking or like fun mental gymnastics right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
To get us, go on. Yeah, go on.
Sorry. No, sorry. Go on.
I was gonna say, to get us started, do you either of you mind introducing yourself and the game we're here to talk about? Since obviously, as we're talking, the game's coming out real soon.
Yeah. Shall I begin, Stefan?
Yeah, go for it.
So my name is Christian. I also go under the nickname of Basantos in Discord forums and in many other places. I've been working as a programmer and system architect for like 20 years. Maybe I should skip the story about Line War now. This is just an introduction about myself. So I'm born in Sweden, Stockholm. I'm 44 years old, and that's me.
Yeah, and Christian found me. I'm Stefan Persson. I go under the name of Invencia. I do some YouTube nowadays quite a bit, and then also try to coach and help other people that want to get into game development. And funny enough, I should be saying that because this is the first proper big game that I'll be releasing. So it's going to be really exciting. Christian found me about 3 years ago, and we've been developing Line War ever since. And we're 2 days away from the launch now, and it's going to be a big day, I think.
Mm.
So I'm kind of curious then. So it sounds like, Christian, that you said you found Stefan. What does that mean? Does that mean did you start this prototype kind of in your basement? Was this kind of like you started the project, or like how did the project kind of start?
Then we have to go back like 30 years from now. I said I'm 44, so when I was 13 or 14, me and my friends bought this tabletop called Axis and Allies. You might have heard of that.
I've had. That's gonna sound bad. I would call it old copies floating around, but it's probably the copy you grew up on, so we're gonna call it not.
Okay. So it was just called plainly Axis and Allies then. Now you have all sorts of versions and revisions of the game. You have Axis and Allies Pacific and 1942 and 1939 and a lot of others. And we're still talking about a board game here. So. We bought this board game when I was young, and we played it, and all of us loved it. And I started to experiment with the rules and expand on the rules, extend the rules. I drew another 3 or 4 game boards depicting other kinds of worlds, and the boards were like 4 times as large as the original Axis and Allies game board, and that board is double the size of a Monopoly board. So it was a large game. You could play just one match for like 8 or 12 hours. And we developed it, I developed it, and we refined it, and I also wrote a gameplay manual consisting of like 60 pages. And we played this game over and over and over for like 15 years. And during this time, I started thinking about the potential to carry the concept over to PC and maybe make it into an RTS game with a very, very high emphasis on the strategy. And I've also watched a lot of World War II documentaries over the years. And from that, I had the idea maybe you could control units in the same way that they draw these lines and paths and rendezvous points in those documentaries. You know, you look at maps from a bird's eye perspective, and you see those familiar lines and paths drawn, like the pincer movement that the Germans did a lot against the Soviets. So maybe you could create a game that actually uses these mechanics to control your units. So I have a lot of experience from other RTSs, specifically StarCraft, but all the way back to Dune 2. So that idea started to emerge during these years playing this board game. And after that, I started working as a programmer and worked for a company. And this company, we owned it together. I was one of the co-founders. It was acquired by another big company in Sweden. And the opportunity arose for me to create this game finally. Okay, this is a long story. I'm getting near the end now. So I was sitting watching for rotating planet assets on Unity, and I found Stefan, and I didn't know that he was a Swede even when I found the YouTube video. But I was so impressed by the documentation, by his presentation, and the asset itself. So I contacted him and thought, let's give it a shot. And he answered, and it so happens that he lives in Nynäshamn, which is a small town just 45 minutes out of Stockholm. So we're living basically in the same city. So that's how we connected.
That is such a wild. So, like, obviously, I appreciate the intro is like you working on this for many, many, many years, like conceptually, and then happened to be you met him like online, and you just happened to be nearby. So I'm curious, kind of, if you don't mind jumping in. Stephen, on your side, kind of, what was it kind of like your end? Was it just kind of, he reached out and was like, I want to work on this? Like, how did that kind of happen?
Yeah, it was really interesting because I was working full-time as an IT security consultant, but I had my Infantia side projects on the go of creating some smaller, a lot of game jams and things. And then out of the blue, I had this email, and I usually get quite a few requests from people contacting me, and usually the ideas are really grand, and I'm excited for people that have big ideas, but it's usually along the line of, I want to create the next Fortnite, but with 300 players and better graphics or something. So a lot of them are aiming super high. But for some reason, this particular email that he sent sort of described how he found me and what his ambition was, and I thought it sounded really interesting. I just based on the journey of the background of the web development for so many years, and I need to improve my programming skills a little bit. I do a lot of other things, so it sounded really exciting. And so we decided to meet in Stockholm. And Christian had brought the game boards and put together a presentation with the rough basic stuff from the game design. And we had a cup of coffee and spoke about it for about an hour, and I was pretty hooked to go for it. I played quite a bit of like back in the day RTSs, back in the Command and Conquer days and Red Alert, and so. But I haven't touched them so much. I did a little bit of StarCraft too. But I think the thing that appealed to me the most was the fact that you control the units with this new visual command system. So the micromanagement, which I'd struggled with in StarCraft, was reduced. And also the fact that we only use the traditional militaristic units right now. I also get a little bit lost when there's loads of different type of factions and you don't really know what the units do. So here you've got clear purpose. It's you draw the commands, you create these operations. So that really, really attracted to me. And the issue that we had is that there was no way of knowing if it would work or not unless we created a prototype. And to create a prototype, everything was involved: netcode, multiplayer, AI. There was no cutting corners, so we really had to start from scratch. There was, even though we had a game engine like Unity, a lot of it took about, I think, 3 or 4 months before we had something that we could really start to, with one unit, to try to draw these commands and have these worlds starting to appear. And since then, I quit my day job as soon as I could, and then we've been focusing on this game ever since.
Wow. So that's obviously sounds like kind of a lot, kind of. So I'm curious. So it sounds like the team is you guys, and you're working on this. RTSs are, I would argue, at least from the beginning, from development point of view, one of the more intensive things to like set up. So it's funny because obviously you're talking about Steven. It's like it's a lighter game. You're like, oh, this is lighter because it looks like a pitch, and it's like RTSs are notorious, just like super hard, kind of to like get feel right and balance, and just 10,000 systems that all have to work really well together. I'm kind of curious throughout this kind of process, especially this like tail half. Was there any of those like problems that have like really stuck out and been like that thing that took a lot of work to kind of fix?
It's been we have managed to develop the game in iterations, although, as Stefan said, to get a playable prototype, that required like 3 months of groundwork before we could actually start playing even the most basic, testing out even the most basic of the mechanics. But after that, we have managed to develop the game in iterations pretty successfully. So now when you're asking, I can't say one single technical issue that kept us occupied for like a month with no progression. Can you think of such technical difficulty, Stefan?
Yeah, it's been a very interesting journey in that sense that we've had very, like from a user perspective, we always discussed what should be coming next, and we added, first we had just a basic ground unit, and then we improved the map, the world generation. That was quite tricky, but overcome quite fast as well. And then just iterations, adding aircraft, adding navy, adding paratroopers, rockets, and it's been a very structured approach that way. I'm thinking maybe the most complicated thing is when you create a multiplayer game is the whole thing around it. I mean, we tested it a lot as well, and we were happy with the mechanic. But how do we take this game and introduce it to someone who's not used to it, and how do we relay that vision to people? Are they going to think it's fun? I think that one may be one of the biggest challenges, but that one we've overcome pretty much now too. So I can't say anything specifically either that has been a particular issue. Just a lot of hard work and discipline to push through everything.
And it's certainly true that it requires a lot of developed components that need to play well together. So that's definitely true. That it's a complicated thing to develop. And like we're doing this in Unity, so one thing that's quite complicated, but I managed to get that working because I have quite a lot of experience before from unit testing and working in iterations. But that is to create a scene in Unity where you can actually play the game as if you had a built client and a built server that were connecting to the server. So that scene is a standalone scene that takes care of everything that's happening in a real game, but it's happening in your scene. So in that scene, you have one player, you have player number 1, you can switch to player number 2, and all the data and state is managed in that root game object of Unity. And then you have the server. So you have this emulated environment. It emulates the whole playing experience, and it's expensive, of course, but because it happens inside the Unity editor, which is not very performant to begin with. So you can't really play the game and have a good experience in that scene. But that's one thing that was very complicated. It's very useful when you're developing the game to have such a scene set up to be able to properly test all the functionality, and that's very complicated. It requires dependency injection and unit testing and quite a lot of knowledge about game objects and things like that in Unity.
Yeah, that has to be fun. Like I've done a lot of the stuff I've worked on tends to either be single player or like local multiplayer, which are way different. Obviously, there's a lot less things. Like the server I worry about, it's like, oh, maybe there's a scoreboard, but like that's the like I don't care about like how you really had to care about these like local networking problems. Mm-hmm. Did that kind of, so obviously RTSs kind of in their foundation are always like 90% of the time are like these multiplayer giant things. Was that ever a discussion you guys had of just like, okay, we just have to make this local to get it out, or has it always been like, no, my goal is to get it online in that more traditional multiplayer sense?
What do you mean by we have to get it local?
I mean, like, did you ever think of like just making it like this only works on like a local network or anything versus like hitting servers, or is it always like, no, just because of the nature of this thing, like even if it's a challenge, we have to make it work kind of on servers to begin with?
From my perspective, it was very natural to begin quite early with working with the cloud and an authoritative server. So I'm talking about a proper server that is deployed in the cloud, and you connect to that server with your client. So that was we managed to get that in place fairly early on. Isn't that so?
Yeah. Yeah, it was. We wanted to aim for something that became esport friendly, and a lot of since we saw that the spectator perspective of Line War, where you see what the player is thinking by all the commands are drawn out, so you can sort of see what the player wants to do. So we really wanted it to be a multiplayer and internet capable type of communication. So that was even from the very first prototype we built that, and it's a bit ironic to speak about it now because we're a bit like opposite to some games, because most of the time I would always advise someone to start by creating the first game should always be single player because they're usually a lot easier to create. But first of all, an RTS, like you mentioned before, is very difficult because there's so many systems involved, and there's the balancing the game design, the networking, the AI and everything. So it's a very complicated thing to do, but it's a bit ironic that we're actually in a situation where the single player is what's going to be more challenging for us, because we have this hand-drawn system where players draw these lines and try to teach the computer to do that without faking like bypassing that system is a really big an issue for us. So we're focusing even on the multiplayer aspect is in a way a lot easier for us, but we'll be visiting the single player aspects in the future. So it's been a bit of a flip side on that one.
Yeah, it's very surprising that, like, as you talk about, like, single player being the challenge point, because again, I just picture, at least from a tech point of view, always multiplayer being that nice struggle, especially like it being an RTS versus like a turn-based strategy game, where a turn-based you could trick a lot of things, have servers catch up. RTS games, you can't do that because it'll ruin the flow of the RTS-ness. The thing I want to talk about next is, so obviously your guys' big pitch, and it's been kind of, as we talk about it, is you've kind of redone some level of this idea of like these RTS grand strategy games. If we don't mind kind of digging kind of into that system some more, kind of how you guys change this whole, how you communicate with the units on the ground and how you control them, because obviously you guys did a bit of a twist on that versus, I have to say, is the more standard affair of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to start on that, or should I speak?
Okay. So you want me to elaborate on the mechanics of?
Yeah, because obviously the big twist is it's not like I'm controlling each unit in that traditional sense.
Yeah. I can begin, Stefan, if that's okay with you. Okay. So yes. So you never click on a unit, any individual unit, or you never drag select multiple units. In fact, you never select a unit at all at any time. Instead, you imagine having, we have this unit called infantry and tank and artillery. So imagine you have a group of infantry standing ready at some place. Then you draw a path somewhere near, away from that place to where you want them to go. And that path, which is depicted as an arrow, has something we call an attraction zone. And that attraction zone is actually visible to you as the player if you select the path. So if those units are within that attraction zone, they will be attracted to the path and start following the path. But if you if you were to draw two paths, they would distribute themselves between those two paths. And the same goes for the line and the point. So these are the three primitives that the command system uses. There are two other commands, but they are used much, much less often. So those are the basics. It's not harder to explain than that. They have an attraction zone, they attract units, they pull units in, and they get assigned to the command. And if it's a line command, for example, they start lining up, just like on a front line. If it's a point command, they gather at the point. That's the basic.
And I think what really drew me to that system compared to the traditional one is that, first of all, trying to dare to try something new. Because I think a lot of companies, they stick to a formula that works. But we really wanted to give this a go. And we didn't have the... we were self-funded and we had the time and we believed in this. So we thought it was worth it to try it out. And now that we're playing the game, we're realizing that you can be in 3 or 4 different places in the world at the same time. And you can take your time, you draw the defense lines, you can start to prepare and gather your troops, and you can start to coordinate. So you get a paratroop drop at the same time as you come with amphibious landing craft that's supported on the side by cruisers and destroyers. And it's a very nice to be able to play that way, especially, I mean, we're in our mid-40s, so our finger speed is not what it used to be. So it's really nice to be able to sit back and I say sit back, and that's not really true either, because mentally it's a bit like chess. It's quick to move a piece, but your brain is working overtime to analyze, because you don't see the opponent's commands, but you can sort of figure out what's going on. At least what you can see, maybe it's stuff hiding in the forest and things, but you see the formation of a line, so you know, okay, he's probably got a line command there. I wonder if that's backed up. So, and then you start to orchestrate your own commands, and change as necessary. So it's very different. And just one more thing to add to that, which is a bit ironic, is that some of the simpler things becomes more difficult. And we've had a lot of discussions. Okay, what if you only have 2 units and you want to send them in each different directions? So then you have to create 2 commands. So again, there are some issues that we've ran into that is that we have to find new solutions to. It's been exciting and it requires a lot of time to think out of the box and how we can stick to the design goal of not selecting units.
And we are surprised. Ever since the alpha testers came on board, we are surprised that there has been very little criticism about the command system itself. We were prepared to much critique on that side, but people seem to understand the idea pretty fast.
Yeah, so that's surprising. So I'm curious kind of about is, so what it seems to me is you guys at least looked at it and said the problem with RTS is I would argue that front 10 to 15%, which seems like is what you guys accounted for, is that like an RTS, once you know the flow, isn't that hard to at least not be great at it, but like play it. The issue is getting to that point of knowing the flow, and it feels like that's the problem you guys tried to solve here. I am kind of curious from a conceptual point of view is why in RTS almost that point? Like, was there ever a discussion that happened of making this more turn-based-y, or is it kind of always like there's something in RTSs we like, it's just we have problems with this micromanagement level of an RTS and that speed constraint?
For me, I wouldn't say that the idea came so much from frustration of the existing RTSs and the mechanisms we find there. It was purely an idea that stood for itself. So it was not like we should create this game that totally solves or do things different for their own purpose. It stands alone, I think. Stands on its own feet. The idea. What would you say?
Yeah, and we discussed a little bit when we were going to try to put a genre, and I think we're closest to the RTS because it is real time. But we also wanted to attract players from any type of different strategy game. So we can see board game players that want to go more on the computer side. Real-time strategy that wants maybe a little bit of a slower pace and more strategy, and war games that also maybe want to take a step away from the really complex 4 to 8 hour super detailed long games and have these 30-minute multiplayer matches. So it grew out of what we wanted to play rather than what Christian said to try to solve a particular problem. We just thought this sounds like it would be really fun to play. We'll try it out.
But there is also so much more to this game than just the very unique command system. That takes some time to explain and some time to experience, but it's different in many other ways as well. And we have heard that from many players. You have the asymmetrical worlds, for example, and the unique picking phase where you choose your starting location. That I would say is something that annoys me a lot in many RTSs. I think it's quite boring with the symmetrical looking maps. And this happens to be one of the most interesting aspects of the game, that they are not so symmetrical and that your starting position is not predetermined. But there are other things as well. The economy is different. That's something we hear a lot. So in most RTSs, you have these resource locations where you gather the famous crystals and the Vespene gas. But in Line War, every territory game gives you an income per minute. So you need to go out and conquer the world, and unless you do that, you better have a very good strategy to punish your opponent to compensate.
I was going to say, so what interests me about that from an economic point of view within the game, and from an incentive of, like, obviously now it makes players want to actually go invade, because obviously versus, like, now having one zone, it's like a bunch of zones with income. Mm-hmm. How did that... So obviously one of the problems in this type of genre is snowballing, so once I get in the lead, it's going to be really, really hard to stop me. Has that been a problem for you guys, or has that been a thing you guys had to kind of create systems to kind of counter that natural snowballing that would happen?
I'd say it's naturally countered, and that's a side effect that was almost not counted for. Okay, I'm coming. My son doesn't understand English, but I'm always speaking English with him. Sorry about that. So I think we've almost had criticism the other way, that it can be too hard to win against a weaker opponent with a greater economy. That's because you have a lot of defenders' advantages. For example, energy, which we haven't discussed yet, is constraining you in a lot of ways. So you have to travel across the sea to your opponent if you're fighting on different continents. And that in itself means that the travel costs a lot of energy to get over to the other side. Stuff like that. You when you start fighting your opponent on your opponent's region, there's a long travel distance to get there, and you might be just outside his production center, and then you're outproduced suddenly. So you might look strong in the beginning 1 or 2 minutes. And then you realize, oh, I'm not that strong anymore. I'm starting to fall back. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's a very interesting kind of problem. So, as we kind of tail on the discussion, I want to talk. There's one thing I really want to hit on before we kind of let you guys go. Is it's a decision that you guys kind of made, because I was kind of going through your past Steam logs and stuff like that. Is you originally looked like going to be an early access game, and then you guys decided to not be one and just kind of fully release this upcoming Friday as we're talking. Do you guys mind kind of, I know you kind of put a blog post out there, just kind of elaborating kind of what I think is a very interesting decision and the opposite of what a lot of games are doing recently, which is obviously them going for a full release to becoming an early access product. You guys kind of are just doing like that jump. And if you guys don't mind kind of talking about like why decided going into a full release versus kind of that expectation of early access.
Yeah, there's multiple reasons why we decided, and originally, it's over a year ago, we decided that we were going to go for early access first of all, because no one had really seen the game. We had a small number of alpha testers that tried it out. And as we touched on earlier, we were a bit concerned that the control system, we needed a lot more user feedback from players. And we were in a situation or in a position where we needed that type of input. And then also there's a bit of a shift, I think, when it comes to the more we learn about the early access period, it's difficult to know when you should go out of it. How long should you stay in it? Where do we put the deadline on where we go from one step to the other? And then we also had the Steam Next Fest, which took place earlier, where we had a public demo out, where we had over nearly 40,000 matches have been played since then. And we gathered a lot of feedback and a lot of backend data and a lot of statistics for the balance and everything. So that's when we sort of made the decision at the point to not go early access, because we felt that we have a game now that is fully playable. It's 1v1 at the moment, and we are making a multiplayer game, even if single player experiences may be coming in the future. We set out to create this multiplayer game. That's what we like a lot, and we like the competitiveness of it, the tournaments, the leaderboard, esports perspective on it. And we felt that we've had over 35 to 40,000 matches played. They're hitting the match duration that we want. We pretty much have a lot of playability and replayability. Some of the testers some of the people that have played the demo have played, I think, over 500 matches and over 200 hours already in such a short period of time. So we felt that we're going to release it as a proper release instead, but we'll discount the price to reflect the fact that we still have a lot to look forward to. So we're publishing the roadmap now, where we'll be adding technologies. We're going to add one more unit. We're also going to be expanding into many different types of things like infrastructure and space and intelligence. And we're looking at different types of single-player experiences. And if we would have done it as early access, trying to put where we would draw the line would be very difficult. So we want to see it as a progressive gaming instead, that's going to release and then just as updates come, we'll have the price reflect that in the future. So we're releasing it at a very valuable price at the moment as we launch, and that should probably increase over time as we add more to it. So we decided we had a lot of discussions between me and Christian before we came to that decision, but it felt like it was definitely the right one to do. And so that's how. Have you got anything to add, do you think, Christian, to that? Or?
No, I think you covered most of it. I think also that the game is very affordable at starting at 14.95 euros for a game that some people have played like 400 or 500 hours in a couple of weeks. No, that can't be right.
I think it's 200 hours since but we do have alpha testers that have played that much over the last year, so it's definitely a lot of.
Which even if you get someone to play 200 hours over a year, it's still a lot of playtime. Like either way, that's still like a pretty successful from a playtime point of view. Like, but no, that's very interesting, kind of. And again, I think it's fascinating because you guys are doing a decision that is opposite of a lot of games in this genre. Like a lot of games in the space, like we're going early access because then our excuse is if we have to massively change something balance wise, we're in early access. Like it's a very easy kind of window you kind of do if something goes wrong. And it's very interesting the opposite press you guys are kind of doing of like, yeah, stuff can change, but like we're kind of saying it's still like a whole experience that just kind of will evolve over time, which is I think a very different discussion.
Yeah, one more thing to add there as well is that we want to have as many people play and enjoy the game as possible, and we've spoken about the difficulties of releasing a multiplayer game. And even if we got a player pool that's playing the game actively, we really want to have people that matchmake at their own skill level, because if you keep losing all the time, it's not that fun. And so we want to also maximize the amount of players that come in during the launch period. That was also contributing to our decision to not go early access. And again, it's because, and we see a lot of other games, like even from the first-person shooter type, Fortnite and stuff, where they do a lot of development over time. They introduce things, they change the map, they bring in mechanics, they take it out. And we feel like the industry is sort of heading that way anyway. We're creating a game that could be flexible as long as it's fun to play and a lot of people enjoy it. I think we can keep developing it for a very long time to come.
Mm.
Nice. Well, guys, I want to say thank you for talking to me about this game for the last half hour. Before we go, is there any closing pitch you guys have for people thinking about checking out the game, or any spot we should be sending them, kind of, since the game, as we said, launches very, very, very soon?
Yeah, go for visit the Steam page if you haven't. Just search for Line War and test it out. I think if you want to try something different when it comes to a strategy game, it would be definitely worth to have a look at the game and give it a try. Give it a few matches and get used to it, and watch the tutorial videos. Because it's if you don't, we've seen a couple of new players that have just jumped straight into the game, and you won't know necessarily what to do then. But just watching a few minutes of the tutorials should send you in the right direction.
Yeah.
Well, guys, thank you again, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
We are happy to announce that this episode of the SWW Show is partially brought to you by Humble Bundle. Well, not really. We are part of the Humble Bundle referral program, and we just wanted to say that if you like really cheap games and maybe helping charity pending the Humble thing going on, all you have to do is go to humblebundle.com/partner equals SWW. That's right, humblebundle.com/partner equals SWW. And you just do your normal stuff, and it just kind of helps us get a couple bucks here and there. Maybe it helps AJ get his lights, maybe it's Mike camera. Maybe we actually pay Corey for helping us out. But again, if you're going to go buy games anyway, it might be worth checking out. The SWW Show and all of its affiliate podcasts are podcasted by me, Mike Maroney, and AJ Losi, sometimes by our contributors, including Corey King. You can follow the SWW Show on social media at the SWW Show, or sooner or later you go to patreon.com/SWW SWW to help us out. Thank you. We hope you enjoy the rest of your day.